Hey everyone, I'm Parker, co-founder of Deco Exchange. Ever been told that crafting is just a hobby? Well, we've turned our passion for crafting into a thriving 8-figure business, surrounded ourselves with an incredible community, and learned countless valuable lessons along the way. From navigating business challenges to celebrating wins, we've seen firsthand that makers mean business. Join me as we dive deep into these stories, strategies, and secrets behind making your craft a successful enterprise. Because here at Makers Mean Business, we're all about proving that makers aren't just making, they're building dreams and running businesses. What is up, you guys? It is Parker here with the Makers Mean Business podcast. Y'all, I'm back for another episode. We are just wrapping up our live selling series. Last week, that was the last episode. And just to be super transparent with you guys, I am waiting on a couple things to launch the next series. So we're going to do a little one-off episode today. Y'all, what I really want to talk about is listing your products online for sale. I know it's one of probably the biggest hurdle, one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to handmade sellers. Most of the time, in my experience, creative people don't typically have a problem being creative and making things. What they have a problem is, or have a problem with, is selling that thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the listing strategies just in general, and some kind of roadblocks and some things to worry about when you're actually dealing with listing. And just to throw a full disclaimer out there, y'all, we did just launch a new workshop. It's available now. The link is in the show notes. It's also available at thelistingstrategy.com. You can sign up today. All of that training will be available, but a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today is going to lead to that workshop. I'm definitely going to try to add as much value as I can with this episode, but I talk about transparency a lot on the podcast, and I don't want to dangle this carrot in front of you and talk about, oh, that's in the workshop, without kind of being upfront that a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today will be really detailed, covered in the workshop. If you are just looking for some general ideas, some tips and tricks, you're definitely going to get that in the episode today. But if you need more guidance than that, if you need step-by-step instruction, if you need screen shares, screenshots, click here, do this type of guidance, that's all going to be available in that workshop. One more time, you can sign up at thelistingstrategy.com. So, listing. A lot of people will get stuck in the listing part because they're not super confident in what they're doing. They're not confident either in their own work, or they're not confident in how to actually list a product for sale. They may also, this is one that I hear a lot, people will say, oh, the market's so saturated, or oh, there's sellers are a dime a dozen on Etsy and all of that stuff. But one thing that I really want to spend a good bit of time on today is talking about the difference between a market problem and a marketing problem. And I'll just define them really quickly how I see it, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. But a market problem would be people aren't buying the thing that you're trying to sell. And I'm not specifically talking about they're not buying your thing. I'm talking about in general, people don't want that thing. So wreaths is always a very easy example for me to talk about because we're so ingrained in it. A lot of our students are wreath makers and all of that. People are buying wreaths. We're selling wreaths. And people have them on their door. People are buying them from Michael's, from Walmart, from Etsy, from all of the things. It's not like wreaths are a dead commodity. It's not that people don't buy them. It's not like they're out of season, out of trend. They're not popular. They're still a thing, right? Door hangers too. A market problem would be people just don't buy those anymore. It would be if you're trying to sell flip-flops, but you live up north in Canada or something where it's snowy all the time. P.S. I live in Louisiana. It's hot here all the time. I have no idea what the weather is, or if people in the north wear flip-flops. Maybe let's just go with Alaska or Antarctica. Chances are, if you're trying to sell flip-flops in Antarctica, you're going to have a tough time. You can have the best marketing in the world. You can have the best product in the world, but there's no market for flip-flops in the Arctic, right? There's no desire for that. So that's an example of what a market problem would be. Now, a marketing problem would be that you're not doing it effectively. The system that you're using is not doing it effectively. You're not playing by the rules of whatever kind of, whether it be your own website, Etsy, social media, you're not following these rules. You're not doing the actual marketing work effectively. And with those two definitions, you can probably tell that those are two very different things. And one thing I will challenge all of you listening, whenever you're doubting what it is that you're doing or whatever you're trying to sell or something that you're doing is not selling, ask yourself, is it a market problem or a marketing problem? Especially when you're taking advice from other people. I'm sitting here giving you advice. I can't say don't listen to anyone but me like that. Obviously, that's not realistic. But I would be very careful of whose opinions and whose advice that you actually take to heart, take to credit. Because people are going to say, oh, there's all of these sellers on Etsy. There's all of these things. You're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. There's plenty of people, y'all, people you've never heard of and you probably will never hear of that are successful selling on Etsy, and they like it that way, and they're not going to promote all of their stuff so that you can see what they're doing or whatever it is that they're doing. Etsy is always a hot topic. People are always going to say, oh, there's so many sellers on Etsy, but there's a ton of buyers too, you guys. And just to clear up any doubt, if there is any, about our kind of authenticity as an Etsy seller, our Deco Exchange Etsy shop has over 25,000, I'm looking at the number now, 25,600 sales. And you might be thinking, okay, that's nice, but Parker, you guys have an audience, you have all those things. Okay, fair. We have an audience, and we blew up over time on Etsy. We also, and some of you guys may not even know this, we have 2 other Etsy shops, and I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to link them, and you can try to find them if you want, but they're not wreath related. They're other markets. They're still in the creative market. One of them has 10,000, almost 11,000 sales. And then we have another one that just is about to hit 2,000 sales. And that's without any kind of public social media promotion. That's without anything. That's strictly using Etsy algorithm, using SEO, using all of those things. Etsy's not dead. It's not a market issue. It's typically a marketing issue. And by the way, we started one of these shops in 2021 and another one in 2022. So relatively recent, thousands of sales. Cool. So now that we talked a little bit about Etsy, y'all, let's move on to some other kind of strategies or some other kind of things that are important to talk about when it comes to listing your product. Assuming that we don't have a market problem, let's talk about marketing problems, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is photography. You're going to want to make sure that you have good photos, because especially if you're selling online, if people aren't touching, feeling, smelling, tasting your product in person, you're only really relying on visuals. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that you are getting the best you can out of photos. That being said, you don't have to have all of this fancy equipment. You don't have to have a fancy camera. What you will need is some kind of good lighting. It's real. You can do a lot of magic when it comes to editing, and it's called like post-production. Once you take the photo, the things that you can do after that. It's really hard to fix bad lighting, and it's good lighting will get you a long way, right? So you can take photos outside. There's typically an hour or so in the morning and an hour or so at night. It's called the golden hour, where the lighting is just really good for photos. You can stage a backdrop outside. I've seen people take photos on not like a rickety old fence, a wooden fence or a nice backdrop somewhere. You can absolutely take photos outside and use the natural lighting, or you can get some box lights and do that. The biggest thing that I really want to focus here is that the photos is it's not the first thing that the first thing that will get a customer to you. Depending on how you're selling on Etsy, they have to find you first. But once they actually find your product, or if your product is showing up on the screen, something that can make you stand out is having a good photo. So make sure that you guys have good light. If you have a relatively new phone, whether it be an Android or a iPhone, the cameras are nuts now on phones, so you don't need some special camera to be doing all that. There are a couple free options that you can use when it comes to photo editing. It's super tough for me to talk about editing photos on a podcast where there's nothing to show you other than my words. Again, that's going to be covered in the workshop, detailed step by step. But a couple good options: Canva, Pick, Tap, Go, and you can actually start utilizing some AI tools like ChatGPT to help with photos as well. Keep that in mind. All right, moving on to the next thing. I probably should have talked about this one first, but assuming that you have good photos, another roadblock that you're going to have when it comes to selling your product online is SEO. What is SEO? Guys, I could probably do a whole episode on SEO. I probably should do a whole episode on SEO. It's basically how the words that you use to describe your product and how a customer searches for your product. Those two things together, I would consider SEO. It's obviously a little more complicated than that. It could be a lot more in depth than that. But on a basic level, if you don't know what SEO is, or if you've never heard of what SEO is, the words that the customer uses to find the product and the words that you use to describe the product, those two things together and how the product is found is called SEO, search engine optimization. So in the workshop, of course, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be giving you tools and tricks to research it. We're going to be showing you how we do our own listings. But when it comes to just some basic quick wins that you can take, if you're not interested in getting in on the workshop, go into Pinterest and just type, open up Google and just type, open up Etsy and just type, let's say that you have a Christmas wreath. I'm going to do it now and we can use a real-time example. I'm going to go into Pinterest, just Pinterest.com. This is a social media platform, basically. If I start searching for a word, let's say Christmas wreath, and I don't press enter, it's giving me Christmas wreath with an S, Christmas wreaths DIY, Christmas wreaths for front door. Again, I didn't even actually press enter on the search or press search. I'm just looking at the suggested searches, right? Christmas wreaths DIY easy, Christmas wreath ideas, artificial Christmas wreaths, white Christmas studio Christmas wreaths, Christmas wreath illustration, Christmas wreath craft, how to make a Christmas wreath. So what I just did there is really fast and dirty keyword research. So all I did was I typed in Christmas wreath and I wanted to see what else people were, or what else Pinterest or Google or Etsy is going to suggest when I just type in just those few words. And you might be thinking, Parker, how is that helpful, or why is this meaningful? Because if you understand the ways that people are searching for different things on the platform that you're on, you can use that insight to describe your product better. You can give it a better name. You can give it a better description. You can use better tags, because all of those things when you're creating a listing on Etsy are really important. Because if you are describing your product and using words just like a customer would to search for it, you're going to have a better chance of showing up first or showing up right in their face whenever they actually search for it. So that's where I am with SEO and what it is and how you can just do some quick, easy search, y'all. There's a whole lot more that you can do with that. You can utilize AI. You can utilize all kinds of additional tools to help you get better SEO and level up your searchability, your findability, your SEO in general. There's a lot in that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the workshop. We'll talk a whole lot more about that in the workshop. We have a whole day dedicated to it. Well, the next thing I wanted to talk about is actually talking to your perfect customer. Now, this is going back to clearing up a market problem versus a marketing problem. You can have the best product in the world, but if you don't describe it to your perfect person, if you're not getting it in front of your perfect person, you're never going to really make a sale. So you really want to make sure that when you are showing off your product, when you're discussing your product, when you are listing your product, describing it, marketing it, you want to make sure that you are resonating. Everything you're saying and doing and showing is resonating with your perfect customer. Now, a lot of research can go into this. We got a lot of our research whenever we were doing craft shows. And we would just talk to everyone. We would ask them what they liked, what they didn't like. The people who bought, we wanted to see what made them buy it, what didn't. And with all of this information, we developed this idea of who our perfect customer is. And a lot of marketing strategy calls this an avatar. You can do a little exercise right now if you want. Close your eyes and think about who your perfect customer is. Do they have a name? Is it a male or a female? How old are they? Do they have kids? Are they married? Are they divorced? What kind of job do they have? What kind of car do they drive? What kind of house do they live in? How much money do they make? Now, all of those things, if you don't know, you don't have a very clear vision of who your perfect customer is. And you might be thinking, oh, do I really need to know all that? You don't. But if you do, your content for them, your product for them, the way that you talk to them will be that much clearer. It will resonate with people that much more. And honestly, it makes your life a whole lot easier. My goal when I'm talking to a person, trying to convince them or trying to market to them a product or a service or whatever it is, I want them to hear what I'm saying and be like, oh my gosh, that's me. So how many of you listening are women? How many of you guys are creatives or crafters? How many of you guys are struggling with technology? So I know the majority of our audience. Now we have a bunch of different customer avatars now because we offer so many different things. But if you're listening to this podcast, you probably struggle with technology. You're probably, I'm not going to throw ages out there, but you're probably middle-aged. You're probably married. You probably have grandkids or have kids that have moved out or are about to move out. You probably worked for a while. You may be retired or you may be empty nesters. So hopefully that all kind of resonates with whoever's listening to me. If not, that's okay too. Welcome. You're probably new or you probably found us recently. But I know when we first started out, we only spoke to those people and it served us well. So the lesson I'm trying to preach here is make sure that you identify your perfect customer and make sure that you talk to them. And I've said this a few different times. Getting the wrong person out of your marketing is just as important as getting the right person in. So you really focusing in on the perfect customer is really important. Y'all, there's a whole strategy that we're going to cover for that in that workshop. Again, I haven't mentioned it in a while. If you want to sign up, you can sign up at thelistingstrategy.com. Y'all, that's probably the three biggest things that I wanted to talk about on today's episode. There's a whole lot of other things that we'll be covering in the workshop, such as social media promotion strategy, creating additional content other than just photos, repurposing your content. There's a whole lot of other stuff that we're going to be talking about too. But I lumped all of that in with talking to your perfect person, y'all. If you enjoyed this episode, if you have some interest in learning how to sell your product better, more, at all, consider joining us at thelistingstrategy.com, y'all. It's a $55 workshop. We have it divided up into 5 modules, and there's a ton of bonuses in there that kind of go along with a lot of the stuff. Everything's going to be recorded. We're going to be sharing our screens and showing you exactly how to do what it is that we're telling you that you need to do so that there's no confusion. And the best part is it was recorded recently, y'all. It's currently up to date as of May of 2024. So all of this is very relevant. It's all it's strategy and implementation that's actually working right now. So consider joining us, you guys. I would love to have you in there. I would love to have as many of you guys in there. I would really just love to help you. Maybe it's making your first sale. Maybe it's making more sales than what you're making now. Maybe it's just giving you that little win, that thing that you really have been looking for to feel like maybe this could be a business. Maybe I can make money selling my product online. I want to help, and Damon and I want to help you have that win, have that support system that you need to sell your products online. So with that being said, you guys, thank y'all for listening. Consider joining us at thelistingstrategy.com, and I'll see you guys next time on the Makers Mean Business podcast. See you soon.